Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of CX with Chopra where we talk about everything customer experience. We've been talking about customer experience, but while we're talking about the end customer, I believe we also have to look at the businesses which are enabling those experiences for end customers. Are those businesses equipped with the right tools? Are those businesses equipped with the right insights? Are those businesses set up to deliver or craft that customer experience? And some of the things that we've observed what are changing in the industry is, we talk about business intelligence, we talk about insights, but the way businesses or stakeholders, let's say your product owners, your marketeers, or operational engineers, or store managers, now the way they are consuming insights is changing fundamentally. Gone are those days where people would probably open up a dashboard, open 5 more dashboards and try to find out an insight, then go to their analytics team, then ask them to do an analysis, trend analysis, and the team would come back after a week, give the perspective. I think gone are those days. Now what people are expecting, some of the trends that we are seeing is that people want all these insights to be more conversational, right? How the way business intelligence, BI or insights should be consumed should be very similar to how the user experience is in my personal day-to-day life. So people are expecting it to be very similar to how it is in my personal, the way I use tech in personally. For example, it could be like how I interact with ChatGPT. It could be, just conversational, I get those insights. I look at InShorts app for news. I scroll, flip through it, I get all the news, and if I click on it, I go to an article and read about it. It should be more personalized. What I like, if I'm a marketing manager, I should be focused on looking at just those metrics, KPIs around that, those campaigns, something related to it. So I'm very focused on that. And I should be able to collaborate with others. So those are some of the interesting trends that we are seeing, which is enabling business to do much, much better in curating customer experiences for end users. And to talk about all of that, we have Mr. Pratik. Pratik is Chief Technical Architect from Kyvos Insights. Pratik, welcome to the show and looking forward to having, interesting interaction, conversation around this.
Thanks, Arjun. Thanks for inviting me here. I'm equally excited to talk about the whole space. I think you pretty much created how people are looking to get insights now rather than pulling the insights, how they are expecting that it could be in their hands automatically.
Right.
So I think that's the key shift that I'm seeing, and really happy to talk to you.
And interesting, I've seen, so you've been with Kyvos for about 20 years now.
Absolutely.
Right. And so you've seen the whole shift in the industry and the way you have also, evolved, grown. So I want to talk about your perspective of how things have changed over the years from a tech standpoint and from a user expectation standpoint. User in the sense business stakeholders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you forced me to go back 20 years. I think when I started, the world or how we were working or building is that people were still getting the pixel perfect report, a report which is of 10-20 pages that a very proficient designer has created, where they put the exact data elements into it, and you used to get those reports on monthly basis to be created, and then if you need a slight change, then you have to do the cycle again. Behind the scenes, you have to write the stored procedures and sequels and whatnot to get to that one piece of outcome.
Correct. And they want many devices also.
Oh, yes.
Mobile wasn't a thing.
Nothing. I think it used to be on desktop.
Correct. Right.
And then I think when the web evolved, especially in 2005 to 2000 era, I think the ad hoc reporting concept evolved, where the seed of self-serve analytics started.
Right.
Where people said, no, we are... It's good you have created this 10-20 reports, but what if I need an answer right now? Can I drag drop on the interface and get my answers? Can I see my sales KPI by dragging it, putting a filter on location and products and whatnot, and can get to see those numbers? So that was the very first evolution where the new BI tools emerged of the self-serve category, where end user or the business user still driven by IT, but they can do the drag drop and get those answers.
Right.
And then come the world of dashboards, the ad hoc interactive dashboard where you could look at the data from various angles, powered by a lot of your roll-up models and ad hoc analysis taken to totally next level. And then the mobile devices came in. Everybody wants to consume the same thing on devices.
Right, on the go.
On the go. And now we are into the Gen AI era, where the days seems to be over, where those traditional dashboards or traditional ad hoc way of drag drop way of doing the reporting is almost in its last phase. We might be the last generation to to use that. I think people are mostly moving towards talking to data, conversing with data. Same outcome, similar outcome to start, but they don't even need to learn the nuances of using a BI tool also. They don't want to learn how to use an interface to get answers. They don't want to learn how to drag drop something or apply filter or something of that sort, right? To get those answers. They want to just like two human converse, just like you and me are talking.
Right.
And generating insights out of this conversation, they want to similarly converse with their data.
Right.
Ask questions, get instant answers, get answers in a variety of manners, in an explorative manner.
Right.
They look at from one angle, they shift their angle, they sometimes continue the context, they sometimes overlook the context and want to totally see from another angle. So that's where we are. I think that this is at the top of the chart in terms of the experience that the people are wanting to see. And again, with every evolution, I think the reach of data to the users has increased.
Right.
It was earlier with those pixel perfect report, 20 people used to analyze those report.
Right.
With ad hoc reporting, it got into hundreds and thousands.
Right.
Right. And then with mobile, I think it exploded. And now with conversation, every person in the company, in an organization, can use data to do the decision making, rather than doing it on the basis of intuition or fact. That they could actually quickly derive the data, insights, and then take a decision.
And the entry barrier is low. You don't have to learn a tool.
Absolutely.
Now. You just have to converse.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest shift. I think that's where now it's going to explode multifold. Because whether it's a guy at the store floor, a store manager, a regional manager, his team, to the CXO level, everybody would need data which is personalized as per their profile.
Right.
And they can.
And it's interesting because you keep hearing this conversation that will AI replace analysts, humans. I mean, it is going to automate a lot of that work, but the whole demand, like you're saying, is going to increase by 100x or probably 1000x. Now everybody wants access to insights since it's so easily accessible. It's you just have to converse, ask question. Everybody has seen the power of ChatGPT. Everybody has used it pretty much. And now the whole demand is going to increase by 100x or 1000x. So the work anyway is going to increase, by many folds. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think when internet came in, when computers came in, people thought that it's going to reduce the jobs. No, computer aided to what you are doing, right? Similarly, AI is going to add what you are doing. It's going to replace jobs, but only with the people who are not ready to adopt AI.
Replace skills, basically.
Yeah, replace skills.
You have to get new
exactly
skills,
put. Right. Yeah, if you are good to use AI, if you are in your any work, not just in the analytics, right? If you are good in using ChatGPT, if you are learning how to use them, you're improving the efficiency of every piece of work that you are doing, right?
Right.
And that applies to the analytics and data piece also.
True.
And as you said, I think it's going to increase multifold. And even the data is increasing multifold.
Oh, that's also true. Right.
Yeah, it's not just the consumption, it's the volume of data. And that's where you need a lot of platforms that can take care of data piece also. A lot of people are focusing on the AI side purely, but AI without the data is of no value.
Right.
Eventually, you are going to miss the context, and the hallucination will occur without the right data empowering that AI.
I want to go a bit into behind the scenes because for the end user, business user, it looks very fancy, nice, right? I just ask a question, I'll get the right answer, 99% accurate, contextual, everything. But behind the scenes, there is a lot of work being done.
Oh, yes.
So I just want to first start with how, since like you're saying, there are multiple data sources, right? But there has to be, and everybody in the industry has been talking about having a single version of truth.
Right.
Initially, single version of truth, or in my perspective, was, you have a customer data platform, MDM, whichever it is, you store everything, you have a single version of truth. But eventually it became slightly more complicated, that even one metric could be interpreted by different business users. Somebody could call a conversion, something in numerator, something in denominator. People would slightly change, and the whole definition of that KPI would also keep changing. And then came, okay, we need to have a single version of truth, but that truth should be true to the absolute context meaning. And hence came the whole concept of semantic layer. And I've read that Kyvos is big on semantic layer. So why don't you talk about more about that? What goes behind the whole building that semantic layer, and what does Kyvos do in that space?
So I think if we look at the traditional enterprise stack minus semantic layer, right?
Correct.
So how it's generally plays, right? You have BI tools at the top, which is your consumption tools, right?
Right.
BI, AI, if I put it together. And then at the bottommost is your data sources, right? Now below that it could be even the raw sources, which eventually get cleansed and everything and get ready
Right.
into the warehouses. Now, traditionally, you connect your BI tools or your custom apps or AI apps or BI apps directly to the warehouses or databases or data sources or streaming sources and start getting answers, right? And it works well. It
Right.
works well till the time I put the caveats.
Hmm.
The caveats are, first of all, the scale or the volume. Now we are no more into the range of just few million records at max.
True.
Right? We are generating billions of transactions every day in almost every big business.
All right.
Whether I go into the space of retail, each swipe of the card we do eventually result in transactions. Right. Now think about the online space, how many transactions happening everywhere.
Right.
Talk about any retail. We talk about financial institute, every bank transaction we are doing, every stock we are buying, selling, that result in a transaction, right? Any healthcare industry you would go results in a lot of transactions, right?
And then 100 touch points other than that also about the customer that you also want with that transaction.
Absolutely, right? So eventually it goes into now we are working with an organizations who are generating billions of record on monthly basis. So and few of them are generating even at the weekly basis.
Wow.
Right? Now imagine that if you want to do a BI even on just 1 month of data, directly stored in your warehouses, and again with cloud, I think storage is now no more a problem, right? But if you connect your worlds of Tableau or Power BI or any BI tool and then start doing a live querying, right, on that data, your experience chokes, right?
True.
Your loading circles can repeat and repeat for minutes.
Correct. It'll
to
go
hours,
on and on.
go
Infinite loop in a way. Yeah.
Right? So I think you need a layer and a middleware who can take care of this. You need a very performant version which can take the power of your BI to the next level, right? Or your power of underlying storage layer also, right? So I think that's one of the key thing where you need a semantic layer, where you need a layer which is a highly performant version of a semantic layer, right? So semantic layer sits in between your BI tools and your data sources, data warehouses. You kind of connect to your sources, you build the models, you build the right relationships, right data models, which takes care of all the complexities of your data. You build your KPIs and calculation at that layer. And then that become a centralized layer, which is a single source of truth, which is under the security and governance realm of an organization. Your admins can watch it. Who is creating the KPI? What data lineage is flowing into generating that KPI? Whether you've done the right modeling or not, right? All this taken care at the centralized layer. So now when you consume the same KPI, whether through Tableau, Power BI, Excel, or your own app, everybody would see the same number, right? So performant middleware, which is a single source of truth, provide a business-friendly view to whether Arjun is querying or Pratik is querying. Both will see, okay, an annual recurring revenue means this. This is the
So the
description.
business logic is also embedded
Also-
along with that
Absolutely.
that data.
Absolutely.
Not just about the data column
Data,
where to pick,
yeah,
but
yeah.
what logic to be applied, and in what scenarios should you go and give it?
Absolutely. And then who can see that? Whether you have the privilege or you have the entitlement to see that or not. Whether
Governance.
only governance, yeah.
So governance is also being taken care of at the semantic layer.
Oh yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the key aspect. See, because if somebody is investing in a centralized layer, they want even the governance and security to be centralized, right?
Correct.
No point each one building their own security layer in BI tools or even a data source layer because as I talked about, right, a lot of calculations or the KPIs are created at runtime. You cannot govern them at the data source layer because they only have the data, right? Similarly, if you create your KPIs and calculation in each BI tool, how would you control the security aspect, right? Who is using what? Who can vouch for it? Who can see that, okay, only X person can see this information is entitled to see that. Whether it's PII, whether it's any key KPI that can only be seen at the higher level, not at the lower level. All can be controlled at the semantic layer.
Which is very interesting because one more challenge which I've heard is or seen is now some of the big organizations which have hundreds of thousands of dashboards typically would also have multiple BI tools.
Yes.
They would have a Tableau, Power BI, Click, Domo. It's an ongoing list.
And
right?
every day new one is coming.
Right. Marketing would use a Domo, finance would use a Tableau, some other team will use a Power BI. Each of them have their own semantic layer. So for example, on let's say Google Studio, they would have invested in LookML, they would have built a semantic layer. Power BI and DAX, they would have created it. But the whole purpose, like you're saying, of creating a semantic layer is have a single version of truth with one business logic which applies. But having multiple semantic layer would defeat the purpose.
Absolutely.
Finance is looking at their own logic. So again, you have to governance also you have to apply at multiple. So again, creates more problem. So I think this, like what you're saying, what you guys do, creating a separate semantic layer on top of that, you could have multiple BI tools would probably solve that problem as well of having
silos
to break silos. Correct.
Yeah, and that's where I think you can build semantic layer at a lot of places, but you can build universal semantic layer at one place only.
Right.
That is the centralized universal layer, single source of truth. And that's where I think now enterprises are realizing that there is a very specialized need of this layer in their enterprise data stack. They cannot just.
But have you done it for talk about some example where probably you saw they had multiple BI tools and then you implemented a semantic layer, then it enabled them to do so many other things.
Almost all of our customers, as you said, right? Each big organization has their own departments, expert in their own choice of BI tool. Right. Finance guy never leaves Excel.
True. Yeah.
From 20 years, you could not enable them to move to any other BI tool.
And talk about AI.
Talk about AI. Still love their own Excel.
Right.
We have use cases where they say, build whatever you want to build. My Excel should work. Whatever behind the backend system you want to change it, but keep Excel intact. And that is one of the key value proposition of Kyvos. We have a very strong connectivity with Excel. A very native connectivity where you can build your pivot tables, you can continue to do your what if analysis, drill downs to another level. You don't have to leave your Excel and yet get the power of the data, which is now at the massive scale, still getting consumed and delivering your value in Excel. And it's not just also about the BI tools. They have their own custom apps. Big organizations have hundreds of custom apps connecting to their databases to just show the KPIs and those kind of things, right? So it's not just about that. We have a lot of use cases of headless BI,
right?
Where they want to call our APIs to get the same answer at the interactive speed at such a massive scale of data.
And the good part is then organization doesn't have to do change management.
Oh yes.
Because people are using the same tools which they're used to, just that now there's much more confidence in data, and the time to insight has shortened, so much.
Oh yes, and in fact, think from a C-class executive perspective.
Right.
You bring in the head of finance, head of marketing, head of sales into a same meeting, each used to present their own numbers,
Right.
which their team has calculated in their own BI tool, and they never correlated.
Right.
Marketing team will say this campaign has gone well, it generated so many leads, and eventually would see into the conversion.
Right.
It would never map.
Right.
But now when everything is encapsulated into a unified data model or semantic model, what we call as, then your numbers cannot lie. Everything is correlated. All the data source from finance sources, from marketing sources, everything is blended onto a unified data model, which is your centralized semantic model. Now, when you query that model, if anybody can query and they would see the same number. So whatever is getting presented to the top management is a single source of truth.
So interesting. You spoke about the whole things above semantic layer, which is the insight consumption, all of that. But if you go below on the data sources, now we have seen that, the advent of Databricks, Snowflake, all these new, tech coming out, which also are coming with their own, AI features, semantic layer, all of that. So how does it integrate with that?
So I think these are all big players, right? They tried their own version of semantic layers and try to convince the enterprise or the data architects that you can build it here, right? But eventually they realize that it cannot, because it's not just about the data coming from the different systems. It's a lot of business KPI that needs to be created, right?
Right.
Now that needs to be created in some centralized layer, and still in most of the bigger organization, data is still not in a single source. It's still federated.
Yeah.
You have not.
That's the reality.
Yeah, that they have not, and nowhere in near future they are able to migrate the complete data just in Snowflake or a Databricks, and then they can say that we have a single source of data source, right? They moved the heavy migration load to Snowflake for, let's say, transactional data, but a lot of master data is still in their worlds of Oracle, so Teradata or Postgre, right? So again, since data is not at centralized place, you cannot do a centralized semantic layer right there. Right. And that's where you need a layer on top of it. And that's where I think players like us sits on top of wide variety of data sources, connect to each of them, and then you design a unified model in this centralized layer like Kyvos, which takes care of data federation, which takes care of data across sources, blending
Governance,
together,
privacy,
governance, privacy, and then on top of it, the performance. I think we have a patented technology of how we deliver performance when talking to the data at such a large scale. So I think performance, centralized security, governance, and then single unified source of truth. I think these are some of the key elements of the semantic layer. And we majorly thrive on this and then deliver the value to.
I'm interested in performance. So how do you measure performance?
See, you need some data, right?
Right.
You are seeing some dashboard, right? Okay, this is how my KPI is doing, how it's broken across this attribute, this dimension. Now, I can just think that you are seeing this across, let's say, all geography, and suddenly you choose the geography like Northeast. How much time would you like to wait for an response to come in?
No time.
Right.
Less than a second.
Yeah. And that's how you used to doing that when you were seeing a data, let's say, I would say it makes 1 million record scale, right? But your wish still remains same. Now behind the scenes, now it has gone to billions of record.
Correct.
Right. But the end user experience or expectation is, I used to get this. You are changing the backend system. It's good you are providing a bigger spectrum. Earlier I could see data only for 2 weeks. Now I could see across 16 weeks. All good. But my time is precious. I cannot wait for less than 1 or 2 seconds, or it makes 5 seconds, or not more than single digit second.
Right.
Yeah. Irrespective, if you're doing that, shrink the data. I'm okay of doing the analysis or taking data-driven decision on just 2 weeks of data. So it's never absolute, Arjun, performance. It's always relative.
Right.
And irrespective of how much you are changing behind the scenes or how much data you are infusing, end user want a single digit seconds response at max, right? And that's where now you need a powerful systems like Kyvos to really keep the experience of business user into into their expectation, and yet you scale,
Right.
and yet you enable enterprises to do the analytics on not just, let's say, 2 weeks of data, but to 2 years of data. So
Right.
I think the backend system has to evolve, and the whole architecture of distributed computing with cloud, I think, has really evolved. I think we've done a lot of investment in that area in terms of a lot of innovation in that area of how we deliver performance by building using our own patented smart aggregation algorithm, and we build and kind of OLAP-ish model on top of it. But again, with how we control the explosion, data explosion, because OLAP is not new, but again,
Correct.
it explodes. Everybody knew. Now till the time data was small, the explosion is taken care. But now it cannot, right? So
Right.
that's the key piece, that was the secret sauce we built, where we control the explosion yet deliver on the OLAP-ish side, and then again eventually deliver performance. So we have what we call as patented smart aggregation algorithm
Interesting.
that smartly build the aggregates based on what you are using, what you are querying, how much to aggregate, how much not to aggregate, yet deliver on that's SLAs of query. So that's the key thing, that's the key engine we have built basically. And that's where Kyvos as a semantic layer has a unique advantage of not just providing the single source of truth or security, governance, and all those aspects, but an interactive responses of your query on any scale of data. We can horizontally scale, we can vertically scale, and keep the SLAs intact, what you need.
Interesting, very interesting. Shift gears now more towards like, now we're talking about, time to insights, or talking about the end business user. And now, like initially I spoke about, gone slowly, the days will be over when people will find a dashboard, open a dashboard, and see people want to have conversational analytics. And I've read that Kyvos also have their own product, Kyvos Dialogue, which is more of a conversational analytics tool. So I want to know more about that, because we have a semantic layer which has all the business logic, single version of truth, which will eventually enable all these AI features, right? The whole NLM or all, different things we're going to talk about. Now, how does this whole thing work behind the scenes? Let's say if somebody queries, give me a revenue for last month and break it down by different states, let's say, if it's a simple chat somebody. So how would it break down behind the scenes?
So I think before I go into breaking that up, and let me just touch upon 2-3 key aspects which would eventually help us understanding that breakup.
Sure, yeah.
I think again the key remains that eventually you are querying something, right, which is there in your semantic layer, semantic models, right? So that's one aspect. But now you're conversing or interacting with data in a totally new way, right? Which is a natural language way of interaction, right?
Right.
So the very first thing that you need is somebody who can do the NLP, natural language processing.
Correct.
And that's where I think this new tsunami of LLMs has taken care. I think they're brilliant. I think biggest innovation of the decade, I would say, and probably bigger than internet search it could be. Right? But I think if I just touch upon its NLP part, I think that's best. I think the language to language processing, language to language translation, I think that's the best thing. So that's, to be fair, that's taken care by LLM. But now, how do you control the accuracy part? How would your LLM would know that if you want me to give revenue across years by this department, that department, how would LLM know, right, that you are talking about a sales KPI and an attribute in your data which has departments and then your segments and whatnot, right? Because LLM has a general knowledge. It's very good in NLP, but just a general knowledge, right? I think that's where the whole concept of the context comes in. That how do you provide LLM a context? Better the context, narrow the context, higher is the accuracy. right? Lesser will be the hallucination because you're pinpointing LLM to do a work in a specific area. And that's where I think the whole technology of RAG has evolved, where you do so basically to improve the accuracy or reduce hallucination, there are two techniques. One is you fine tune the model, you make the model specific for your need, your domain, or you provide the context at the runtime. And that's the most common way of providing the context, which is RAG. That's where you, let's say you're building the conversational piece on top of semantic layer. Then semantic layer is already a rich in semantics, right?
Correct. It understands all the metadata, logic, everything.
And that's the context LLM need. So if you can, a platform like Kyvos or a platform which is rich in semantics, where data models are rich in semantics,
the foundation should be strong.
That becomes the key of dealing with the accuracy piece, right? Because you have all the clean version of your, let's say, column names, KPIs. You can tag them in terms of how your business user would call it, right? Somebody would call country a country, somebody might call them even states, somebody might call it
so
nation.
You could still have your 1,000 data sources tables, but if you have one common universal semantic layer, at least it will solve that and enable all this AI features.
Absolutely. I think that's the key. I think this foundational layer serves all the three purposes, which majorly you are dealing with LLMs or with this Gen AI piece. One is accuracy, second is speed, and third is security and governance. Because LLMs, you can get it generated everything, right? You the layer who is building this piece has to take care of security and governance. Whenever you are asking a question again, your expectation remains that single digit second response time, whether you are conversing or whether you are running your dashboards. And then additionally on top of it, accuracy, because now you are not doing a pinpoint querying, right? Where you're not dragging, dropping absolutely a column that you want to see. So now this system, the Gen AI layered system, has to deliver on that. And having a rich semantic layer enables you to do that, because it has that context which can easily given to the LLMs, and then it I won't say generate the 100% accurate answer every time, but we have seen the accuracy going above 90% with us. At least we have built that way, the Kyvos dialogues, that accuracy is above 90%. And I'm seeing a very good traction in terms of how customers are trying it out and really looking to adopt it.
So one question, I'm just trying to break it down in my head. So let's say if I write in the chat, I write, give me revenue for last month, and compare it with last year. Sure. So now LLM will break this down and maybe convert it into a SQL. That's understand from semantic layer what column name, everything has to be there. That SQL will hit my data lake, right? It will get that data. LLM will again understand the context and then create that language like a response and give it back.
Absolutely.
That's how it will work behind this. Where does RAG or RAG sit in this? Where does it come?
At very early stage.
Early stage, okay.
Yeah. So let's say as soon as you hit a question, right, a user hits a question, the very first thing you have to do is you have to identify the right models, a semantic model, or let's say in very basic term, right data tables, right? Database tables that can answer that. Which database and which tables can potentially answer it, right? Now, even to identify that, you need a RAG system.
Okay.
Because you have thousands of tables, right? Or let's say, even with Kyvos, let's say you could have hundreds of semantic models built on that. Now, if you ask that, give me a revenue of last month and compare it with last month of same year, which semantic model can answer this, or which set of tables can answer it?
Right.
For that, you need an RAG system, right? So what does RAG system do? It takes the metadata of your table descriptions, your database description, or your column description, and put it into a vector DB or a graph DB, right? So now when you ask any question, then a semantics of that question is generated, and a semantic search is done on the vector DBs, that okay, to answer this question, what are the columns or tables that are relevant to answer this?
That comes from RAG system.
That comes from a RAG system.
So if I have to draw a parallel and maybe just simplify it for me, it's like on Google, when I search, let's say, a dolphin, right? I'll get certain attributes. If I write it'll show me it's a mammal, average lifespan, length, all those things, habitat, everything. But if let's say I search a building, let's say Burj Khalifa, I search, it'll not give me all these things.
Right.
It'll give me how many floors it has, what height it has, what's inside the building, all those things it will tell me. Those two things are very different.
Absolutely.
But behind the scenes, it is systems like this which will find what are the relevant information for this that the user who searched just a word should get and what we show. Is that the right?
Absolutely. Perfect analogy, Arjun. I think it's again narrowing down the context.
Right.
When you're talking about building, you might get 100 pictures. When you talk about Burj Khalifa, you would get a one picture, right?
Right.
Because you narrowed down the context. Now, it could be that you might be behind the scenes wanted to ask about Burj Khalifa only, but since you've just given the context of building, it has given a lot of answers, and your answer and the answer you were looking for might not be present, might not be in the top of the list.
Correct.
And you're not getting that. So as you narrow down the context, your accuracy improves, and this is a general science of the Gen AI. Even when you work with ChatGPT, right? If you simple say, what is Apple? It can say it's a fruit, it's a big giant tech company and whatnot, right? But when you say, okay, I wanted to know more about apple fruit, it would give you specific to apple fruit and its variety, right?
Right.
Same happens to any piece of analytics that you are doing or using the conversational way. If you narrow down the context, now either user do it or your system does it.
Right.
Now you cannot put a burden on user, right? That give me a perfect question that has all the nuances in English written that I can answer. So I cannot say give me a sales figures for country India and product furniture in year 2010. Right? That's not a conversational or natural way of talking. True. What you would say, right? You would say, give me sales figure for India.
Max, I'll ask questions. Do you want it by region or...
Region, right? So now you have to understand that, okay, when somebody is saying India, it's a country. And you have to apply filter of country India. When somebody is talking about furniture, it maps to a column which is a product category in your database or in your semantic model, and you have to apply a filter on that. And then if you're talking about 2010, it's an year.
Right.
Now that's the key piece. So you'd see a lot of chatbots has emerged with the emergence of Gen AI. They would say, okay, we are doing conversational piece and you can ask question in natural language. But if you go and query them, and you would see the difference how precise a question you have to give versus how, I would say, an obvious question you would give.
Right.
I wouldn't say an ambiguous question with less context, but an obvious, right? The human would ask in that way. And that's where they are struggling. A follow-up question, they fall out. And that's a true conversational piece is where you can ask 5, 10, 1500 questions in the same context as we are talking, right?
Give a response and then ask a question.
Then,
you ask for revenue, here's the revenue. You also want it by region.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you can ask a feedback, whether I am correct or not, whether you're looking for something else. But you cannot keep saying them, no, I cannot answer because you have not given me the context.
It cannot be one way. It has to be a two-way conversation.
Absolutely. It's a conversation, just like you and me are interacting.
Right.
And it's not that in every piece we are recreating the context, right? So 5 minutes back we started that how RAG is working. Now we are talking in that.
Correct.
And we have conversed 5-10 times.
Right.
I think you cannot build or claim that we have built a conversational system which just allows you to ask a pointed questions in natural language. One question, one answer, that's it. No follow-ups. I think that is the key difference of a true conversational piece that we are trying to build using Kyvos dialogue, or we build, versus somebody who is just claiming that we have built a natural language querying system, but you can ask question and just one question at a time. That's it.
Well, interesting. One very interesting use case I'm thinking, since we're talking about conversational analytics, is also, and want to know your opinion and how far are we reaching that, is cracking the whole regional languages. So for example, somebody in, let's say, a village in Karnataka, or somebody's village, small shop, let's say in Punjab, that person, let's say, assuming has some infrastructure, everybody's using Paytm, assuming they're using some CRM tool also, let's say, but can have a conversational analytics in their own regional language and ask, let's say, in Hindi, कि अगर मैं ये बेचता हूँ तो इससे मुझे कितना फ़ायदा होगा, मुनाफा होगा, या इसको कब तक मुझे स्टॉक को रखना चाहिए वरना डिस्काउंट पे, and it does all the calculation and gives you the answer. I mean, that will be like the big, huge.
I think that's that's the true data democratization or self-service.
Right.
Self-serve, and that's it true. Even a shopkeeper, running a small shop, can take a business decision based on data rather than intuition.
And that's only dependent on LLMs. Soon we have LLMs who are based on regional language. The behind the scene doesn't have to
Behind the
change.
scene,
Because
absolutely.
another, like we discussed,
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
convert it into a SQL, get everything and give it back.
Your backend system is still going to understand SQL.
So all the investment on semantic layer or the dialogue is going to be the same. It's just as soon as it. But that's going to be really interesting.
That's going to be huge. And that's where I was saying that this technology of AI is not going anywhere. It is going to stay and deliver value, because now it has given AI into the hands of common people.
Right.
And anything that goes into the hands of common people, I think it's going to stay. That's how internet search has evolved. That's how this technology is going to evolve and going to be there for years.
I was reading some of that. First, people have to adopt, and then enterprises adopt.
Oh yes.
Any technology.
Because
everybody wants to then, be there.
Otherwise, AI has been there for years.
True. Right.
The true adoption is never there, or in except few use cases of retail where you get the recommendations and those kind of things. But it's not a mass adoption. It's not that every enterprise is budgeting for AI, even in the times where people are saying the budgets are low and the recession is there, people are firing and the jobs are getting cut, but there are hefty budgets allocated for AI innovations. It's only because when you see a market demand for that, right?
Right.
And everybody think if they are not investing in AI, this new AI, I would say, or new realm of AI, I think they would soon fade away.
But tell me one thing. So with AI, let's say even conversational analytics or a Kyvos dialogue, giving it to the hands of every business user or every user in the organization would be the aim. Right. But it has a cost attached to it, right? Every query, there has to be some cost in that AI infrastructure, all right, which is going to be there. So how do you see, strategically organizations should go about doing things where it's easy to give? Yes, tech is there. You've invested in things. You've built that foundation, infrastructure. You've got the right tools. But will my cost increase exponentially? So how should we play smartly, or businesses play smartly about it?
Yeah, I think that's where I think that's what I see as the next biggest challenge. I think this year, I think last year was all about doing
will
AI.
Will it or will it not?
Doing AI. Everybody wants to do it at whatever cost.
Right.
This year, a lot of those use cases fade away where they have not seen the value.
Business have realized what use case they want to go.
They want to do.
They've seen
so
that.
This year is about realization of those use cases, getting some ROI out of it and putting it into the hands of their customers. I think early next year would be where the cost concern would start emerging. Just like what happened with cloud. Everybody thought that a cloud is the next big thing.
Right.
You don't have to invest in infra and everything.
Big data.
But when then you have seen the hefty cloud bills, everybody realized now we need to put the strategies around managing the cost. How can I make the whole thing elastic, only pay for you per use, and then how can I purchase some of the compute capacities for, let's say, 1 year so that I don't have to pay the regular bills. And I think similar strategies or the same space, that's where people would be in starting early next year. That's what I think. And that's where I think there are two aspects to it, right? One is the cost, which is purely associated with the LLMs or maintaining, managing, creating the LLMs and then eventually leveraging them.
Right.
Second would be how do you manage the data also? Because data is also exploding, right? And with AI, it's going to be.
Right.
Earlier, when I was talking about use cases where we are solving billions or trillions of records, we have yet not touched upon the unstructured data. The data which is in your PDFs, which is in your images, it's in the video. But with Gen AI, I think every data is now available to be consumed. It's
that
parsable.
Cost will also come down in a way because of AI. Right?
Because of AI, right?
Right.
So the data is going to increase and then the consumption is going to increase. So a lot will go in the space to talk about how do we control the cost. And I think some of the initiatives we have already started taking.
Interesting.
Especially on the platform side, where we don't go to the cloud for each and every query. Our model serves the query in an interactive fashion. So we just process it once, and then all your business queries are served through our models rather than going back to the underlying warehouses, where you get charged for every query.
Right.
For
And
every
you can
piece.
preempt certain queries as well.
Oh yes,
right?
and then the caching and all those
All
layers
those
definitely
things.
comes. And again, that's also an important part of
Yeah,
the
if you do a
semantic
stakeholder
platform.
interview, capture the top 20, 30 questions, that'll probably, I mean, the 80-20 Pareto rule,
Oh, yes.
80% of the question will be answered by 20% of the queries. Maybe.
Totally. And that's where I think you touch upon a very important point, where the concept, like we have recently started working, which is called a semantic caching, that will emerge. So right now what happens is caching, how it works, that you query something and then you cache the results against that query, and then same query or similar query comes and you return the response. Now
Right.
that's right now to a structured query languages like SQL or
Right.
MDX and those things. But in natural language you can ask anything, right? You can ask same question in two different ways.
Right.
What is my yearly sales versus what is my sales in last year,
Right.
or what is my
Right,
sales broken up across years, right?
Hmm.
So now you need to, answer would be same. The SQL generated would be similar, right? Some nuances here, but output is going to be
Right.
same.
So two questions map to the same SQL.
Same SQL. Now you need a layer where you can, instead of going back to LLMs for again translating the same question and getting the same SQL generated, you need to build a layer which is semantically cacheable,
Semantic.
where it understands the meaning of question and then store its answer, which is a SQL or any data, right? So I think that's going to be next big innovation that would come again in the, especially in the space of analytics in terms of saving cost. Then a lot of other innovations are coming up in terms of you can deploy your own local LLMs. Distilled versions of LLM are coming, which are very small, which are built for specific purpose. So for example, for conversational piece, I have to just generate the SQL.
Right.
Do I need a 700 billion parameter gigantic LLM, or can I do a small LLM or SLM or small language models?
It will optimize the cost also.
It would
right?
optimize a lot of
and
cost.
performance, speed.
And performance,
Right.
absolutely. So yeah, a lot of initiatives would start coming in, a lot of innovation would start happening in this area, because it's all about ROI. You cannot keep on investing billions of dollars.
And efficiency also.
And
right?
efficiency, yeah.
Very exciting. I mean, of course, very exciting. But somebody who's starting now in their careers, right? So what tip would you give them? I mean, you've been there for like 2 decades. You've seen, and now we are seeing, how it's going to now, explode into things. So somebody who's starting now, what skills they should be looking to build? Because I've seen, some of the young talent out there, they also don't know, should they go deep into a tech? Things are changing so fast. AI agents are going to do a lot of those things. So what is your perspective on that?
Very
If
interesting.
you have to answer to your younger self, let's say.
No, in fact, I'm answering that to my kid who is 14 years old.
Huh.
He's just moving to 10th standard.
Huh.
And we are planning that.
Huh.
2 years ago, we were pretty sure JE
Huh.
in computer engineering and that sort, and eventually
Right.
he's into the same field.
Huh.
Now we have huge question mark star. I won't say question mark, a star
Right.
to it, that now the space has changed.
Yeah.
Whether you learn Python or a prompt engineering.
Yeah.
Is prompt engineering going to be the only language that needed? Because
Right.
ultimately every piece of thing can be eventually
Right.
get generated.
2 years
by
down the line,
LLMs.
nobody will code, I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
What you need is how efficiently you can ask the question, and or if I
Right.
extended it, how efficiently you are doing the prompt engineering.
Right.
How you are prompting the LLM, how efficiently you are
Create that
prompting.
architecture of agents, think through all those things.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think, ironically, I was in Nirma Institute, Narasimha Institute 2 weeks ago. I was attending a tech talk, and same, the young guys are asking the students that is our job, we are going to get it or not, we are doing
Right.
AI, but is it the only future, or and I said, just focus on foundational layer. I think the brain is going to stay there. I think get the skills powered by AI. Learn
How to use
AI.
AI.
Yeah. How to use AI, because eventually it's not that humans are going away. the emotional aspect, the humanity aspect is going to be there. It's whether you can efficiently use AI for doing any piece of work. That you have to get skilled in. So you should learn AI. Everybody should learn AI. If not going into the deep of how to build an LLM, I'm not saying go and learn that. Go and learn how you can use the Gen AI to do small stuffs. As if you were doing in academics, you were trying a lot of things. Just use the Gen AI to try out lot of things, because earlier AI was very centralized to some organizations or IT players. Right now, it's going to be in the hands of common people. Even in future, farmers would need guidance from AI. Now, if you are skilled in that, you could build a thing for them. You can build your own products. You can build your own startups around AI that enables common men to use this AI and things better, improve their efficiency. So I think learn AI. Do not bypass it as if you are learning English or any language. Do learn the Gen AI piece, and then apply it. Application is still yours.
True.
So that you have to focus on, and don't get afraid that it's going to take a job away. It might create a lot of newer opportunities. And you might create a lot of jobs.
True.
So that's the one advice I'm giving. That right now, focus, consume this space, adopt, accept this space, and let's see how it unfolds and what new opportunities it brings.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, it was such an insightful, interesting conversation, and I'm sure, a lot of business users going to, see this podcast, understand, going to be, obviously everybody's excited about that, how it's going to create so many use cases, how they can be now enabled to answer all those business questions, come up with innovation and help create a better user experience, customer experience. Thank you so much. And thanks for watching. Do like, subscribe if you like this, and continue watching for more such episodes.